So we'll just give a minute. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Agility Academy Leadership Learning Session. Today we have got Ben from London, UK, who is going to talk about this interesting topic, which is about how to incorporate agile culture within an organization, and based on the findings which he and his team has found on the latest report. Hi, Ben. Glad to have you
Hello,
here.
thank you, Sandip. Good morning. How are you doing? Nice to see you.
I'm doing good, mate. Thanks for being here. So those who have tuned into this session first time, this is the event which we do usually once a fortnight. And you are currently live. We are currently live on LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe to our LinkedIn page to stay tuned. Uh, if you have got any questions, we will encourage you to ask those questions on either of YouTube, LinkedIn, or live session channel where this session is going live by writing a comment. I'm Sandip. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. I have been part of Agile Journey since last 20 years, and we are pretty excited and stoked to have Ben here, who is also our learning partner. Uh, Feel free to say hi. If you don't have any question yet, feel free to say hi. Introduce yourself by saying from where you are dialing in. Since this is a LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook live session, you'll be able to access it, watch this video even after it's gone live. So that's about it. Over to you, Ben.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sandeep. Well, good morning to those joining from my continent, and good afternoon, good evening to others. I'm Ben Hutchinson, and I'm a director with JCURV. JCURV is an agile consultancy, and I'm also, as Sandeep mentioned, working with the Agility Academy as one of their trainers. Now, today specifically, we're going to talk about the 3 levers which leaders can pull to strengthen the agile culture. And this is off the back of an extensive piece of research that we'll talk through with you today. We had 1,400 responses this year, really good insight and depth. And what we want to do is share those findings with as many practitioners and agile leaders as possible in a way that's practical. It's going to help you act on that feedback to strengthen the agile culture in your own organizations. And there's a bit of a spoiler here. You can see some of the top 3 levers that leaders can pull on this slide, and we'll go into this in a bit more depth. Okay,
Yeah.
so if we can go on to the next slide then, please, Sandeep.
Sure. And before we move on, I'm quite curious to know, what do you think? Why agile transformation fails? And I know in the industry there are people who strongly believe that agile is the way to go, and there are few skeptics who think that agile is the reason for the failure. So, anything interesting to share with regard to that?
Yeah, so interestingly, it's actually, and I've also shown some of the clients we've worked with, because actually these are some of the big names that are grappling with these sorts of concepts. What we typically find, and likewise the survey shows this, is not so much about the tools and processes that you put in place. Quite often you can have all the tools and processes, you can reorganize your organization, you can have time-boxed 15-minute stand-ups in the morning, you can do all the right things and have the right names in the organization. But ultimately, if you haven't put that real effort into changing the culture and changing the way people are managed, to engage people, to up their motivation and help them feel that real sense of purpose that comes with a real successful agile implementation, chances are agile is going to fail. And as you say, Sandeep, sometimes that then gives agile a bad name. So often the test cases where it's been really successful, they've truly transformed the way people are managed and the way people are interacting with one another. So if we look on the right-hand side there, you look at that bar chart. This actually came from a different report. It came from the State of Agile report. But in this one, you can see it's where the company culture is at odds with the core Agile values that you have the biggest issues. And actually, in 52% of cases, those Agile transformations are failing. You can also see as you go down the board, it's all people issues really. So resistance to change, people don't necessarily adapt if they don't feel it's a genuine intent, especially if you don't have, say, inadequate management support. People are not going to feel that actually things are really changing for them and they want to be part of this journey. Also, of course, you have got to upskill your people. So people need to have some level of agile skills or experience, and they need to be told what's changing and why. And particularly, we like to focus on what's changing in terms of the way we'll be managed and leadership. How's leadership going to be different? Are you ready to be empowered as a workforce? There's all sorts of things that leaders need to be thinking about before introducing Agile.
Cool. Sounds like a really interesting topic and a lot of insights as a part of this particular report, which I'm definitely going to leverage and apply in my day-to-day life. What are the objectives of this survey? I'm curious to know, and probably
Of course. Well, I referenced a different survey there because that's a very similar size of survey, but they look specifically at the state of Agile. What we're looking at here is the state of Agile culture. So you go one level below and say, okay, so we know that Agile can succeed or fail. There are different reasons, but what do you have to do to really change the culture of an organization? So our survey objectives is looking at those key cultural enablers, giving the practitioners some insight, which is going to support their organizations or their clients to change, and also benchmarking capability across organizations. We see lots of organizations that we consult with, and some are very advanced, others may be struggling, and it's interesting to unpick the differences in culture and the way they've applied Agile. So really that's what we're trying to uncover with the survey.
Okay. Sorry, and I can see that you have got few key outcomes as well as part of this survey.
Well, this is more for the session. For the session here, we're going to just share some of those initial findings, things that might help those who are joining today. And also, I'd love to get your perspectives. So we've got lots of great talent on the call, Agile practitioners, lots of experience. I'd love to know how you're finding it in your organizations. So we'll get your views on the chat channel in a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when it comes to key facts, I reckon this survey was conducted across globe. So you haven't just focused on the European market and organizations. You have got really good mix of organizations and leaders and teams who are spread across the world. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely, and I'm happy to show a few more of the graphics on this. But you can see it's a truly global survey, and really, I want to show you the robustness and the extent of this global survey. So we've had people from all around the world, and those who are wondering how come we've got 1% from Antarctica, I have no idea. Maybe that's a mistake. Maybe they're ice picking down on that sort of part of the world. Who knows? But anyway, we've got people all around the world. We've got lots of different sectors represented, all different organization sizes as well, and different levels of agile maturity. We're not just going after those who are doing safe here. We want to ask people who have no agile in their organizations and actually contrast those with the varying levels of agile maturity found in other organizations. But this is certainly the biggest survey of its kind looking at agile culture, and it's one of the 3 big surveys, probably the biggest now, looking at agile as a whole. So it's very robust data, and we use an approach from Truthsayers neuroscience where we really unpick whether or not survey respondents are being truthful and genuine in what they're saying about certain aspects. So by measuring, for example, the time of response for different questions, you can be quite sure that it's scientifically significant.
Cool. And I reckon with regard to that 1% in Antarctica, that might be someone who is working remotely and has participated in survey while being there.
And maybe so. It's the new way of work, the hybrid working model probably is.
Absolutely. And what are the focus areas? Like where have you targeted just individuals, teams, organization?
This is individual responses, so it's individuals giving their views on everything from company performance through to how the organization's culture is perceived. But in terms of what we ask them, so we ask the self-reportees to say, what do they feel about themselves? So how well is learning done within the organization? Do they feel safe? Do they feel that they can give feedback, for example? Do they feel recognized by leadership? So you see all these attributes on the left-hand side about asking people about their own views and opinions about how they can adapt. Then we ask those same individuals about the company. So is there a continuous approach to learning? How well is change carried out? Is there a collaborative spirit within the organization? And so what's the team dynamic? So that's all around the company context that they operate in. And we ask those same people about leadership as well. So does leadership empower you? Is there a view of a willingness to experiment perhaps? Is there clarity of intent? So is there clear views given around what the organization is trying to achieve? And also clear prioritization. Now you look at these things, and if you look at those attributes, particularly on the leadership, this is what comes out strongly. This on the right-hand side, these are the things that consistently top the charts. We had it last year as well. We run this survey annually, and you see time and time again, it's empowerment, it's clarity of intent, it's prioritization. These things that are the true determinants of the agile culture. So very interesting to see that although it's all self-reported, and we look at 27 attributes, it's where the
Yeah,
focus is typically on the leadership side.
that's quite interesting fact because over a period of time I have worked with leadership teams and different people from different organizations, and this is the common theme which even I'm seeing on the ground. So I'm not surprised when someone has said that empowerment, experimentation, clarity of intent, prioritization, these are the things areas wherein there need to be more focus because at the end of day If you have got all those things in place, you are truly acting as a leader rather than manager, and you are collectively relying on collective wisdom, and entire knowledge which is present within entire organization or team, rather than expecting one person to act as an expert. So
Hmm.
this takes us to interesting conversation about scaling agile. And I know, if quite often we see two extreme ends. One thought of one at one end, there are people who don't believe in scaling when it comes to agile, and they are strong proponent of simplifying things rather than scaling things. And on other side, there are pragmatic, practical people who believe that even if you work in any organization who is dealing with a large complex solution, you need to scale at some end, and you can't just think about applying agile principles at a team level, because at the end of the day you have to be part of that entire ecosystem and be aware of whatever is happening in the enterprise. So I'm quite curious to know what are the findings when it comes to scaling agile when you conducted this survey.
Of course, and if we can move on to the next slide, actually, if we can go on to slide 6, what we see actually is where organizations have no agile, unsurprisingly, the impact of agile on the organization is basically nothing. It's 1 out of 100. If we look at team level, so this is where you've got agile practices in different pockets of the organization. This is quite common in terms of survey respondents. Often certain departments pick it up first, they start to see some success. But the trouble is, you still have all the blockers and you still have all the challenges around the outside. So let's say it's a new IT product and they've got an agile IT squad. Well, what about the legal sign-offs? What about the HR sign-offs? What about the problems they're going to have, with other departments, procurement maybe? So actually, it's only when you get to the program level and the enterprise-wide deployments that you start to see quite high scores in terms of, by having that level of agility throughout the organization consistently, suddenly you start to see leaps and bounds on company performance. In fact, what I find most fascinating about this is the big jump comes when you move from team level to program level. So it does suggest that a program as a whole can operate in an agile way and be pretty successful at that. You might get a few more gains by moving enterprise wide, but in terms of, say, SAFe and the concept of why don't we do PI planning at program level, very clearly the benefits are there. So when you're looking at teams of around about 150, 200 people working on a program, absolutely, by having a joined up, consistent approach to agile, that's where you're going to unlock the value.
Yeah. So if I want to play this back, there is a value definitely if you apply agile principles, practices, frameworks at a team level, which is like, I will say what we are seeing is here is like, if it's none, one participant or one percentage saying that it's none, then probably 30% people do believe applying agile principles, practices at team level is going to make a huge difference. And then it's almost double when you look at the program level, by applying things which are there typically in a scale agile framework, SAFe, which is quite popular framework when it comes to applying agility at a large level. So definitely key call out here is that if you want to improve organizational performance, scaling agile is way to go. And you can't hide behind any processes, anything, if you are truly embracing that business agility. Because at the end of the day, you want someone to fund your project or initiate your teams. At the end of the day, you need to hire new talents or engage with your third party vendors. So procurement also needs to be part of the mix, and then marketing and legal. So I reckon answer for this is that you need to go big bang and touch go beyond IT teams, and embrace true business agility.
Absolutely. And once again, to show the robustness of this data, we're not asking people for their opinions on things they haven't seen and witnessed firsthand. We are only asking if they are working at program level agility. We're asking what's the impact that agility is having on performance. So people are looking at the here and now. How is it helping their organizations? And like you say, Sandeep, really it's only those organizations that are doing agility at program level or enterprise wide that's really seeing the difference there.
Cool. All right, there. I just want to remind our audience that if you have got any questions, okay, those questions need not be specific to whatever slide we are going through. But if you have faced certain challenges at a team level when applying agile principles, or program level, or even while working in an organization which is traditional and big, what are those key challenges? What things you expect to be changed from the leadership point of view, from the culture change point of view? We are keen to understand. And if you have got any questions with regard to this topic, feel free to ask those questions on by typing that in comment section. We'll answer those here. If we can't, probably we'll get back to you, post this session. All right. Now, next interesting topic is Great Resignation. I don't know whether that's
Absolutely.
truth or it's just a hype, but Is that something covered in this report?
Well, absolutely. We wanted to see by changing an organization's culture, is this the thing that's going to help you retain talent? And to the question around, is this just a hype? In fact, so many organizations struggling right now. In fact, a quarter of organizations are actually impacted in the goods and services they can produce right now simply because they don't have the people, they don't have the talent. So this is a real phenomenon, and a lot of organizations across industries are genuinely seeing a large number of people maybe quitting their jobs, changing industry, wanting to be driven by a sense of something bigger, maybe bigger
Mhm.
purpose, doing something they really enjoy. And actually, we'll see in a moment how much of an impact Agile has on motivation, on empowerment, on the sorts of attributes people are looking for. And nowadays, maybe employees are becoming more discerning. They're looking at roles and they're in a very strong negotiating position. And they have the luxury of being able to negotiate and look in detail at how an organization operates rather than just being desperate to take an employment opportunity. So, like I say, 25% of UK organizations really struggling. A third have reduced the products and services because of these staff shortages, and two-thirds are actively trying to get a better working culture to help address staff retention. That's a powerful point. Before now, many organizations try doing cultural change, but often behind it, there's some sort of cost-saving agenda or whatever. Here, they are literally just trying to look at the employee experience. And I want to move us on to having a look at some of the findings from the survey, which show how can you do that? How do you change your culture to enable that level of employee engagement and retention as well? So here we're comparing for two different types of organization. The blue types of organizations have no agile at all at the moment, and we're looking at staff engagement levels there. And then we're looking at large scale agile and comparing those two extremes. And what you can see is across the board, with one exception at the bottom, across the board, you see far higher scores there for the large scale organizations. So essentially, feeling valued by the organization is pretty low for organizations that don't have agile at all. If you look at large scale agile programs, you're looking above 60%. That's pretty high. I don't know about globally, but I know in the UK they actually say that up to two-thirds of people do not feel truly engaged by their organizations. So actually,
Mhm.
even seeing a score of 65, that's pretty high, and a vast difference compared to organizations where they have no agile. And you can see that same thread throughout here. Inclusive leadership is higher, putting the best ideas into action far higher in an agile culture. And like I said, that does go all the way through. The only exception, and I think the call out has to be work-life balance. And actually, work-life balances seem to be higher in organizations with no agile. You might think that's perverse. I think the reason for that, when you have a proper agile culture and people feel inspired to give their best every day, they put in more time, they put in more commitment, and they feel that sense of purpose. And that can be great. Of course, leadership just need to work to look at burnout and make sure that people aren't overdoing it. So I think it's valid to look at that, and I think that's a true finding that sometimes work-life balance maybe takes a hit, but it's for good reason because people are happier in their roles.
Yeah, it's all about following your passion and then feeling that you are contributing beyond your day-to-day job, and that's where you sometimes those boundaries become quite blur, and then you spend more than what you expect to spend at one particular place or area.
I think
That's
that's
quite
it. Yeah.
interesting. I really like the parameters which have been considered while looking into the agile's impact and great resignation, like inclusive leadership, open openly learn from mistakes, efficient at managing priorities, so on and so forth. So that's quite handy thing. Now, I think going back to main topic, what are the biggest levers of an agile culture? I reckon there are three levers which we are going to discuss, and that is one of the main finding of this report. But we are keen to understand from our audience which things you have seen working at your organization at team level or probably program or enterprise level, acting as the biggest levers of an agile culture. What has actually helped teams, programs, organization to move change from traditional ways of working to agile ways of working? So please feel free to answer those three questions, or share your thoughts by responding to this live session. Ben, I'm quite excited and curious to know what are those three things.
Excellent. Well. So I sort of gave away some of the threads here, but it's interesting to see how they rank relative to one another, and I'd love to hear how the audience relate to these as well. Is it the same things you're seeing? So strong leadership role models came in at third position. It is vital that leadership get behind this, and that's why at JCURV we start with a leadership team and we say, okay, what are the values as a leadership team you feel you can sign up to, and therefore how do we really influence and shape how people perceive that role of leadership and how it's changing? So that came in third. Number two was clarity of intent. So to be really specific here and be clear in my intent, what we're meaning here is the leadership need to set the right parameters around what are the focus areas and what do they want to achieve within, let's say, a agile sprint, perhaps. Maybe it's a product owner being very clear on how they're prioritizing the backlog, but then giving those teams the parameters to work within that. So once the teams are clear on expectations, they can deliver to that mandate without needing to be micromanaged. Ever so important, especially with hybrid teams as we have nowadays and remote teams. Clarity of intent is vital. People want to know they're doing the right things. But number one, and this is fascinating because actually a lot of people can influence this, doesn't have to be leadership. An environment where people can give and receive feedback in a way where they know there's no negative repercussions. If you think psychological safety, all that work by Amy Edmondson back in the early 2011, 2010 sort of era, have a look at some of that and look at some of the fundamental principles of psychological safety, because it's so interesting and you really understand, okay, by having these cultural elements in place and putting these foundations in where people can give feedback openly, challenge each other, really share their perspective, but in a way that's felt to be safe and in a way that's received well by the recipient, makes a huge difference to an agile culture. And really, Sandip, that's what Scrum teams are all about, right? It's all
Yeah,
about challenging one another. It's all about getting to the right outcome for the customer. So this shouldn't really be revolutionary, but so many companies struggle with it and people feel awkward about feedback.
yeah. And we have got one participant who has replied back, Fatima. Thanks Fatima for sharing your thoughts. So she has mentioned trust and transparency as one of the key lever for of an agile culture, and I reckon that goes hand in hand with what we have got as the first, topmost priority or topmost lever. You will be able to give feedback and receive feedback only when you have got that psychological safe environment where you are able to trust your leader, your team members, your peers when it comes to sharing diverse views, something which might not go hand in hand with what is the collective wisdom or what people are thinking. And unless you have a transparency, you will not be able to give quality feedback. So I think those things are quite intertwined. You can't actually, get anything apart from what we have got here. But transparency and trust, I think, correlate with what we have got here as a can give and receive feedback in a transparent manner in a safe environment. Cool. All right. We also got participant. We have got Mukul who has joined from Hyderabad, India. So Mukul, good to have you here. Uh, she said that she is already finding a lot of useful things, tips, tricks in this session since beginning, and role modeling agile way of working is something which has stuck to her. Thanks, Mukul,
Okay,
for
brilliant.
that.
This is
Yeah,
good agile feedback that we're getting the feedback on the fly here. So I like that. Thank you.
yeah, in the real time. All right. I just want to remind everyone that if you ask questions and if you have got any further details which you seek, we'll be more than happy to reach out to you. Just comment there, or connect with follow Agility Academy page, or connect with Ben or me and drop a direct message. At the end of these sessions, we have got one surprise gift for anyone who has asked maximum questions or at least asked one question for this session, and we are going to observe that for 1 week. So stay tuned. All right, now $1 million question. What actually is needed for the greater, leadership engagement? What kind of things which are expected?
Yeah, exactly. So this slide just takes a little bit of explaining. So if you look at the title there, it says perceived strengths of personal, company, and leadership agility. And then at the bottom, you've got the key. So what you're actually seeing here is in terms of personal leadership agility, you see people feeling quite confident about themselves and what they can do to be agile. So this is what this is saying, really. Delivery team, 46% confidence that they themselves can be agile versus C-suite, 64% confidence. So C-suites are far more likely to feel they can be agile in the way they lead and the way they deliver things and so on. That's what that's saying. If we look at the next bar, this is now company. So, Sandeep, if we click click again. Hopefully we see it. There we go. So company, now the delivery team does not feel the confidence that the company can be agile, whereas the senior leadership team, yeah, they're getting more confident that the company as a whole. Interestingly, senior leadership team, SLT, more confident that the company can be agile than they are confident in themselves to be able to introduce these new techniques, which is quite insightful, isn't it? Maybe if you think about the demographics of that group, they're going to struggle. They've maybe managed in a traditional way throughout their careers, and they believe the company is maybe ahead of them. And again, C-suite, relatively confident of the group. They're the highest. They think their companies can be agile. But what I
Yeah.
think is really interesting about this one, if we do the final build now, please, and we compare that to leadership. So now if we think all these roles are asking, can leadership be agile? If we could reveal that one. I think it's just coming up. Interestingly here, managers, they're fairly consistent across the board. Senior leadership team, no, they don't feel that leadership as a whole can be agile. In fact, they're rating that less likely than them themselves being agile. Delivery team, certainly no confidence. Delivery team think they can be agile in
Yeah.
themselves, but they don't see it from their senior leaders. Let's look at the C-suite side though. So only 41, so almost the lowest score besides delivery team. They don't feel that leadership as a whole can be agile, and that's quite telling. SLT are pretty low scoring as well, so maybe C-suite have got this bang on.
Yeah.
But if we just do one more build on this slide, one more click, just to compare those again. If you look at the right hand side, it's the leadership teams who have the least confidence. Really, the delivery team recognise this. You've got some confident middle managers maybe, but actually there's a problem here. What we're hearing here is the leadership teams, particularly the senior leadership of organisations, don't have confidence in their own leadership capabilities. So there's a real lesson here around, if you want to strengthen the agile culture, look at what you can do with your leadership teams and be purposeful in your intent. Be very clear about, we are going to change the culture. We're going to have a few leadership behaviors that we're going to live by, and this is how it will be different for people on the ground, because it requires a concerted effort across the board. It's no use one visionary leader, a bit like back to the point earlier about myself being agile. No point in doing that in isolation if your boss is going to expect waterfall status reports.
Yeah. There you
You
go.
need to have that flowing through.
Yep. Yep. And I was reading one article, and it was mentioned the culture is driven by the leadership style. So it doesn't matter how good or great you are, or what kind of agile mindset you possess. But if you work in an environment where expectations are a bit different, and you got someone who is quite command control style of old style of leadership, then you have no choice, right? You have to follow whatever is expected within that large organization. Now, quite interesting to know whether there is any correlation between COVID and the the speed at which agility has been embraced by different organizations. Is there any correlation?
Yeah, I'm going to have to move quite quick now, recognizing we've got a couple more minutes. So if we just show all the
Yep.
graphics on this slide, please. I'm just going to call out that it's in particular industries, top right-hand corner, where previously the agility was very low, and typically these were not the forerunners of the previous surveys, but these are the ones where agility has shot up. For many of the banks and other organizations, they're doing agility already. There's not been a huge change during the COVID era, but actually it's government and transport and some of these sectors, government up 14%, transport up 16%. These are the industries which are really changing their ways of working, and maybe they're being forced to do so because of COVID. That it's almost the push that's really changed their dynamic. It's like the same for charities as well. Charities has changed a lot, but actually I think that's a really good thing. It's been a force for change. It's sort of been the thing that's really pushed the last few organizations or industries over the edge, if you like, and it's forced them to be experimental. So I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, it's no longer wish list. It's a compulsory thing which anyone need to embrace, and that
Mm.
happened with the pandemic. All right. Just to summarize, what are the findings, and then probably we are running short of time. So
Mhm.
quickly,
Yeah,
based
so
on
so in a nutshell, there is a clear business case for investing in agility. That's very clear in the report, and please do download it as well. So we're going to give you a link in a moment to download your report. There's obviously a business case as well, so it's worth taking the time and plowing the money into doing this right, and definitely investing in agile leadership. If there's one clear takeaway that we keep coming back to, make sure your leadership are on board, make sure your leadership know how to lead an agile way. That's truly vital. And we can see that if we do the final build on this slide, you can see that not only do organizations need to invest in their leadership, but we also need to help practitioners to resonate with those leadership groups and speak the right language. And again, JCURV, we're developing a course with the Agile Business Consortium, who've been joint pioneers of this research, to help give practitioners the skills to resonate with the leadership team. So do look out for that on the Agile Business Consortium website. They've got loads of courses which deal with that topic specifically. But like I say, you must all download your copies as well. Stateofagileculture.com. Super simple, stateofagileculture.com, and you can have a free copy of the full report, which I couldn't cover in as much depth during a half-hour discussion.
Sure. We are running out of time. Just quick thought that, in terms of how do we better engage with the leadership teams to change behaviors, and what skills, capabilities, and experience do practitioners need to succeed. So these are the two things, as we have seen throughout this particular session: leadership change, as well as change at a team level, top down, bottom up, sideways. You need to incorporate that change from all angles. uh, Agility Academy offers certification courses and advanced leadership programs from Enterprise Agility University, which focuses on change management, leadership agility, so on and so forth. So feel free to check Agility Academy portal to explore those learnings, where using which you can have leadership teams who can change behavior and incorporate or fast track culture change. Similarly, we are Agility Academy is a bronze partner when it comes to SAFe, Scale Agile Framework, which is quite popular and quite useful when it comes to upskilling those capabilities, bringing up team members, team leaders to embrace agility by playing Scrum Master, Product Owner, or even Lean Portfolio Manager role. So feel free to explore those opportunities to continue your journey. uh, with this, I just want to quickly say thank you so much, Ben, for being here and sharing all this, useful information. We are going to all those people who have actually registered for this session. You will, as I mentioned at the start of this session, there's a surprise gift. So you'll get an invitation to book 15 to 20-minute Agile consulting session with one of Agility Academy leaders and experts. Plus, you will get link to download full report of state of agile survey, which we have discussed today. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel, Agility Academy, as well as you can go and explore more about this topic on JCURV YouTube channel. And stay tuned. Follow Agility Academy LinkedIn page. There will be heaps and heaps of learning opportunities which will be coming across. There are a few questions I can see. Overseas, Fatima, Jack, you have mentioned a few questions, but since we are running out of time, what we'll do, we'll answer those questions on LinkedIn, and we'll go from there. Thanks again. Stay tuned and see you next time. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. Thanks, Sandip. All the best, everyone.